Okay. We are recording. Looks good. Sounds good. All right. Welcome to today's episode. Today we are going to be talking about something that a lot of people have been discussing lately. I've seen a lot of chatter about it on social media, on our Discord. Questions that come up constantly is about Crusader Squads. So we're going to go over several different things with them. Talk about the squad size, what size squads should we be taking, how should we equip them? That's the number one question I see about them. Should they be melee? Should they be shooting? What things should I mix them? Type of thing. And then something that was brought up when we spoke with Kevin about his tournament winning list is should we take Power Fists or even Pyroblasters in your Crusader squads? And then lastly, we're going to go over the types of lists where this unit fits in well. So to get us started off, we're going to talk about squad size. So obviously they come in a minimum of a 10-man squad. In that 10-man squad, you get 5 initiates, 4 neophytes, and a sword brother. Sword brother has to be armed with either a power sword or a power axe. And he comes with a heavy bolt pistol, which you can swap for a pyre pistol for 5 points, which I'll just going to go ahead and say it. Frankly, you should only do if you're like, I have 5 points left and I have absolutely nothing to spend it on, because it's not worth it. It's strength 3. It's potato. Um, unless you want to burn witches.
Burn
In any
some
case.
witches.
So squad size. So you 10-man minimum. You can then add up to 4 additional neophytes. You do not have to have a ratio. Remember back in the old days, you had to have a ratio of initiates to neophytes. Not anymore. You can have a squad of 8 neophytes, 5 initiates, and a sword brother if you want to. But neophytes are 4 to 8. Initiates are 5 to 11. So you can run them all the way out to a 20-man squad. And that I think is actually something that is viable. I have run 20-man squads more than once. um, Especially you have to build around a squad like that. They're really expensive. You're talking about um, several hundred points in one unit. That's a troops unit. But if you build around it with Grimaldus and other support features, they can be really durable and really hard to shift. So I think 20-man squads are definitely worth looking at. It is going to be a centerpiece, unit for your army that is going to take and hold the center of the board and just be really annoying to shift and potentially even pretty deadly in close combat. The other, way on the other extreme is just a 10-man squad. Um, Kevin ran 3 10-man squads in his list. Now, he didn't take Power Fists, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But he ran 3 10-man squads and had great success with that. So I think that's another great way to do it. Um, and then there's the in between. And there's been a lot of discussion on should I take 14, 15 man, something in between. Um, Personally, for me, I don't think that is going to be the best option. If you're looking at like a 15-man squad and you take 2 15-man squads, you have 30 guys across 2 units, right? So yes, those 2 units are going to be more durable than a 10-man, just because you have additional bodies, and they can be pretty efficient too if you're taking the extra neophytes, because they're 3 points cheaper a body, especially if you're running uphold. Anything greater than AP1 is wasted on them because they have a 5-up invul. But now you're looking at essentially 30 bodies in 2 troop units. You still need another troop unit, so you're spending more points, at least 100 more points on a third unit, of maybe assault intercessors. For me personally, and I think Bob, you probably agree with this, is I would rather have 3 10-man units than 2 15-man units, because now I'm in 3 places at once with 3, units that are still pretty durable, especially with uphold, even if they don't have support from like Grimaldus with a, you know, um, the feel no pain. Um, you know, but I can now capture 3 objectives with those units, and if one gets depleted, I still have 2 other units. So, what are your thoughts on that, Bob?
Yeah, I agree. Competitively, I think we are probably best at the 10-man squads. And, as several lists out there have kind of shown that have been pretty successful, as multiple 10-man squads kind of
Hmm.
is like the place where it's at. Now, it's kind of fun and, potentially even effective, but it remains to be seen in a competitive way, the 20-man squad. But you can't really take multiples of them. They just
No,
cost too many
it's too
points.
much. Too much. Yeah.
But there is a couple of pretty well-known players out there. I'm not going to name them here for their notoriety there, but they're uh, kind of doing some playtesting with 14-man squads, and 3 squads of the 14. Now, I think theoretically their reasoning for the extra durability on those squads to kind of give it more daunting, oh man, I got to kill those extra, 12 guys, than,
Hmm.
the 30, so it would be 42. That is kind of demoralizing for an opponent, especially when it's so hard to kill them as it is.
Right.
But when you're looking at, I think they're 16 points apiece for the
Hmm.
neophytes, if I remember correctly.
Yep,
So
they are.
64 extra points per squad. That's a redemptor.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And
it's
then some. I mean, that's 192 points total extra. So that's a redemptor and a few points for that pyre pistol. So it's that's a lot of extra points, and we're already points tight as it is because we want to run some of the big scary durable melee units like Terminators and Vanguard vets and Centurions, things like that. So that are already big point sinks. So having to sink that many extra points into them when what your gain is going to be off of that versus the value of those points in another unit is uh I think you're better off with those 3 10-man versus 3 15 or 14-man.
yeah, yeah,
And especially if you're running 2 15-mans, just take 3 10-mans. There's because now you're spending an extra 100 points on assault intercessors or even infiltrators or whatever. So you're just gonna be better off, that way. I think there is a place for 20-man squads. From my own experience, now in a tournament, it's a different story. But my own experience with them has been positive. So I like them. They're fun. They're fluffy, and they're really really annoying. So
yeah,
um, you're going to look at either a 10 or a 20-man. I think is going to be your best go to.
yeah,
So how are we going to arm them? So there's a couple ways that we can go about this. They the initiates come with an auto bolt rifle, which is the best bolt rifle to have access to, which is great. Um, and the neophytes come with a carbine, which is 24 inches assault 2 bolter. Um, so you can also arm them with shotguns, which is the same thing except it's 18 inches. And we have a strat that makes them damage 2. I think that's a trap, the shotgun, because while it seems appealing, yeah, damage 2, they're AP 0. So you're going to struggle to get the wounds through, especially on the targets that you want to shoot damage 2 at, like, for example, Space Marines. Grey Knights are a top meta choice. Thousand Suns are really good. We have more Chaos Marines on the horizon. So, we that extra damage. It sounds good in theory, but in practice, its actual amount that you are going to average increase is not worth it. So I think the shotguns are a trap, which is kind of unfortunate because I think it is a really cool. The bits are really really cool looking. So the I did some math on carbines and auto bolt rifles versus the heavy bolt pistols. obviously in shooting they have more shots. So even though there are some heavy bolt pistols with the AP1 in there, they are definitely, on the shooting side, you're gonna get more wounds. Against Marines, against things that are between tough 5 and tough 7. We're going to see a lot of Nidzilla lists. Almost all of their big bugs are tough 6 or tough 7. So you're going to see that as a something coming up here, I think, soon. I got Orcs in here for you, because Orcs, the buggy list is dead, but Orcs are still a very strong codex. And then tough 3 with a 5+ save. So Guardsmen, I know they're not a meta choice right now, but Eldar are tough 3. You're looking at Drukhari are tough 3. So um, obviously the shooting is a little bit better. That's not unexpected. But when we move to melee, the chainsword completely outclasses, in some case almost double, the not chainsword equipped guys. So when that unit gets into close combat, which we probably want it to, we're not tackling things like Terminator squads or really hard units with our Crusader squads. That's a mistake. But we are tackling the other things, the troops, the fast attack choices that aren't super elite melee units. Uh, those are things we want to charge, and you're going to completely outclass the gun-toting Crusaders with the chainsword guys. So I also did a chart here. You can see if you combine the two together, we are, they catch up a little bit with the shooting part, but once you charge, it's still in favor of chainswords. So in my opinion, chainswords are the best way to go. The other thing is to consider is when you're looking at the uh, initiates versus the neophytes. In shooting, the initiates are better. They have heavy bolt pistols, and they have auto bolt rifles versus carbines and regular bolt pistols, right? But when you take chain swords, they're the same. They fight the same. They have the same weapon skill, and the chainsword really makes up, for the lack of good shooting options for the neophytes, which is awesome because when we're taking wounds on this squad, we want to be able to take the best save possible. And it used to be in the olden days that you were picking neophytes up, you know, first because they weren't as good. Now they are as good in melee. So you just want to take the best save possible. So, thoughts on the armament, Bob?
I think it's a pretty clear winner that the chainsaws and heavy bolt pistols are what you really kind of want to arm your guys with.
Yep.
Ultimately, these guys are meant to clog up your opponent's list.
Yeah.
With their chaff, they're reasonably cheap. They can hold objectives. They can hold them better than an opponent can.
Yep.
Those 18-inch range on those heavy bolt pistols are not something to sniff at.
Nope.
So they can still put out shots that are reasonably decent, and nothing's going to really want to come at them that isn't a dedicated close combat unit. So,
Yeah.
plus, you know, as much as I really want to like the assault uh, or the bolter rifles there and give him that extra range, I mean, when you look at the math here, it's just not close.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
what you can do on them. It takes away a lot of the strengths of our lists to be able to be adaptable to what we
Yep.
need. It primarily pigeonholes them into ranged. If you
Yep.
get them in close combat, they're not really going to do anything.
Right.
Um,
They're not nearly as deadly.
yeah,
And with the chainswords, all those extra attacks on a 10-man squad, that's 10 attacks. If you have a 20-man squad, that is a ton of attacks extra. That makes them a viable target for something like Remorseless Persecution to trigger those 6 mortal wounds, especially if you get rerolls on them. On a 20-man, if you can get them all in, you're gonna trigger those 6 mortal wounds.
yeah,
So it gives you an alternative especially later in the game, if this is a unit that you have left that was maybe untouched because your Vanguard vets were the primary target, or your whatever was the primary target of their shooting and melee. But that unit's now gone because it's done its job. But you want to, you need to wipe this other guy off an objective. You can do that. So, um, you know, uh, however, there's good news. Is all those really cool bits of the auto bolt rifles, stick them on intercessors. And so when you want to run an intercessor squad with bolt rifles, there you go. Now they look the part, like as they
Yep.
should. So
And then that way you can actually, if you want to use the the ABRs, you can actually put them on the intercessor squad and gain access to rapid fire, which
yep,
is
which is much better.
yeah.
So yeah, I think they're pretty much outclassed by intercessors because of that strat. Because intercessors can be taken in a 5-man, so they can sit on a backfield objective and have a little more range. To target some stuff with that. Um, so yeah, now that we know that we probably want them to be melee, let's we've got two special options here. We can take Power Fists or we can take Pyre Blasters. They're each 10 points apiece. You can take 2 per 10 man, so in a 20 man you can have 4. So Pyre Blasters, I'm sorry,
Burn
but
those
no.
witches.
Yeah, burn the witches, but
No,
leave the
don't,
Pyre
don't.
Blasters at home.
Yeah.
10 points is too expensive for a Flamer that's +3 inch range and AP -1. When it was damage 2 for 5 minutes on Warcom, it was great. So, but at 10 points, damage 1, it's not worth it. If they get a points drop to point like 5 points, um, I could see them seeing play. I would be interested in taking them at 5 points, because now it's just literally a better flamer. Um, but as it stands, unfortunately, skip them. So Power Fist. So this is what you alluded to earlier with Kevin. Said that Power Fists are a trap, because, and granted, they're 10 points a piece, and if you're running 3 squads, you know that's 60 points. That's an attack bike. That's uh, you know company vets with some extra gear. They, there's a lot that you can do with 60 points. So I wanted to run some numbers on whether the Power Fist was worth it or not. And so I used the same set of targets. Here I did add in dreadnoughts, and because we're gonna see those. The same sort of thing will apply to those NIDs. They're basically dreadnoughts now. So the but it's still, honestly, I think the numbers show that if you get those Power Fists into combat, they will make their 10 points back pretty easily. I did 6 Power Fist attacks versus 8 Chainsword attacks, because that's the difference in the two guys wielding them, and the Power Fists win pretty handily. I popped rerolls to hit on there, because that's probably going to be your most common buff that you'll be giving these guys, since Litany of Hate is a aura. You can affect multiple units with it. Um, you may really want it on that Terminator squad there, but these Crusaders that are right next door may be benefiting as well. So it's not something that you're going to want to necessarily. You don't have to target it, right? So I also did some math with the extra guy that those 20 points buy, and Power Fist still come out on top. Which, to be perfectly honest, I think that's a bit of a fallacy to think like that, because if you're running a 10-man squad, the extra guy that you're buying now puts you at 11, and you're getting hit with full blast for one guy. No, you don't want to do that. You could use those 20 points to spend somewhere else. If you just don't have the points for it, you're fine to run without the Power Fists. But I think they help you out a lot against most of these targets, even things that are -1 damage, where sort of negates a big bonus of theirs, you are looking at wounding easier, right? And the power fists get a huge bump in damage output with rerolls to hit because they're going from 50% to hit to 75%. So they're absolutely worth it in my opinion. Do you need them? No, I don't think you need them. But if you have the points and you want the unit to be able to threaten multiple targets, I think they are definitely worth taking. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I think they're worthwhile. Kevin uh, brought up some good points there, and you can see all that in our interview on that. Um, but it really is kind of a hot take, on that. Now, if you're strapper points, great.
Drop a
Honestly,
couple,
the
yeah.
the Crusader squads are meant to hold objectives, be annoying to kill for your opponent. But if you really kind of want to utilize them as like a close combat threat, in my opinion, if you're not going to just rely on some of persecution, you really kind of have to have some legitimate close combat weapons in
Yeah.
your squad. You have the power weapon in there, the power axe or
Sword from the
sword.
yeah, sword, yeah.
So that's something, but you also have to think about it like this. What happens if you are going up against those new nids that you're gonna have to fight? Chain swords are not really gonna do you justice on that. You need something that's gonna
Yeah.
be hitting a little bit harder
Yep.
and give you some AP.
Yeah.
So while you're probably not going to get that damage too because of the -1, but
Right.
unless you're going against the warriors, which aren't applicable to that, but you're still going to be getting the AP2 or potentially 3 if you're an assault doctrine, and you're going to be wounding on 3s instead of like 5s, which is
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
So it gives you a little bit more adaptability. You can go up against potentially vehicles. You can attack. Maybe you're going against Death
Those
Guard. It's the
those
same
dread
thing.
knights.
Dread Knights.
Dread
You
knights
know, it,
are essentially redemptors on steroids, and
yeah,
they don't have a -1 damage. So the extra damage helps you out a lot there. Yes, they have an invul and you'll trigger it. So your AP is a bit lost, but they you wanna get that damage through, and a power
yep,
fist is a much better way to do that than a chainsword
I agree.
against them.
Now, one thing I will say though that I would say is a trap is don't put the Fist of Balthus on a 10-man squad.
No,
Uh, yeah,
save that for a
that's
20-man.
yeah, something larger
Yeah,
for that, or potentially like a small 5-man where you can double attack an assault intercessor. That would be better. So don't.
because you're gonna know, like, a savvy opponent is gonna know that. Oh, so I gotta watch out for that fist of Balthus because it's mean. Um, and they're gonna target that squad over the others
Yeah,
unless they're gonna lose objective points because of it. So they're gonna do what they can to get rid of that fist before you can utilize it fully. Whereas with a 20-man squad, that's going to be really hard to do because they're really, really hard to shift. Likewise, spending things like Champion of the Feast and Sword of Judgment, the revered repositories, on a 10-man sergeant, probably not worth it. You could probably, you know, I don't know. I don't know that I would even just pop Sword of Judgment on him. Now, something I might consider would be giving this sword bro the skull of Kekodaminus, because it's not an offensive weapon. It's just a big annoyance. And, they're going to have to kill a whole 10-man squad to get rid of that. So I think that would be worthwhile using revered repositories on a 10-man. But save the extra power weapon stuff for a squad that has the durability to last long enough for you to make good use out of it.
yeah.
So,
Redundancy is kind of key on these
yeah,
guys.
yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're running multiple ones. So yeah, so we've talked about squad size. We've talked about the how to arm them melee or shooting. We talked about the special weapon options in there. So building, what types of lists does this unit fit into? Obviously, you can run them in several different ways. Bob, tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are on how to work Crusader squads into your lists because they're really fluffy and we love them. They're so unique to Black Templars.
Yeah, so they're kind of a unit that really are. It's really kind of cool, We've all got a bunch of them now, right? So we want. Hey Bob, how are we going to put this in a list, right? Honestly, I'll put it to you straight, and how my feeling is on it. You really need to build around them. So they are the crux of your list. So if you're going to use Crusader squads in whatever form that you're going to take, you need to build that as the centerpiece and have your support pieces around it. So, what I mean by that, I'll use Kevin's list as kind of an example. He did a great job of explaining what he did with it. He took the 3 10-man squads, he kept them simple, didn't take power fists on them, but he had HQ support and
Yeah.
character support to ensure that those 10-man squads were going to survive. Grimaldus is an example of that. He was
Yep.
able to string those all his squad along so that all of those 10 mans were able to get the 6+ invols as well as the other buffs like advancing and getting across the board, important things like that.
Yep.
And those litanies. He also had Helbrecht, who was able to give some of those rerolls to him, as well as the extra strength, which is all important, as well as being able to be in range of those redemptors, which is another key. You have to have shooting in a list that is
Yep.
going to utilize a lot of bodies. So
Yep.
if you're going to go into the Crusader squads, you have to build a list around the fact that you're going to try and be, as Kevin put it, an anvil. You want to be durable. You want to have bodies on the ground. You want to be able to throw your weight around and outlast what your opponent can do. So that's really one of the main ways that you can utilize them is those 3-man squads. I would not recommend taking a single or a double unit of Crusader squads because it's just not quite enough bodies to be able to make them worthwhile. If you're going to do that, you really might be better off just doing MSU with some assault intercessors or something similar to kind of
Now,
maximize
counterpoint
your.
to that, I did run it now. Granted, I it's not a list I've taken to a tournament. I'm not really a tournament player, but in my local group, I do have a list where I have one 10-man Crusader squad, and it they've done great in that list. Now that list also has a block of Terminators, 2 squads of minimum size Blade Guard vets, 2 assault intercessor squads, attack bikes, and 2 redemptors. So there's a lot of other threats, and because they're troops, my local meta are just like whatever. But they've done well because I took power fists in them, and they did pretty well. I had protection with Grimaldus with them, support from my other units. So because there were so many other units that were seemed scarier, my opponent did not focus on them. So I think it can be viable, but again, you have to build around. You have to understand that this isn't going to be the centerpiece unit. You have to uh, just be cognizant of that. I think a 20-man blob, you don't want to run 2 20-man blobs.
No.
It's too expensive. But a single 20-man blob could work. You'll want to pair it with something equally scary, Centurions or Terminators, because they are now your opponent has to choose. Well, am I going to try to kill 20 guys, or am I going to, because if I'm trying to kill 20 guys, then this other unit over here is murdering my entire army, right? So they got to, but then they'll might be surprised the fact that those 4 power fists, with probably the Fist of Balthus and maybe the Sword of Judgment, come in and start murdering stuff because they'll hit pretty hard too. So 2 big threats like that, again, you have to build around it. They're not a unit that you can go, oh, I got this amount of points left. Let's throw in a Crusader squad.
Yeah.
That's that. You got to kind of just focus on. Do I want to take Crusader squads in this list? Yes. Okay. And then I got to support them to make the most out of them.
Because
Um,
they're not cheap. You're forced to spend at least 183 points for
yeah.
each squad.
Yep.
So if you're taking three of them, that's a good fourth of your list. So
Yeah.
you need to make sure you have the pieces in place to be able to support them.
So
Or in the case of another, as you mentioned, the 20-man squad, you
yeah.
got to have support for them.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. So yeah, I think they are 100% a competitive unit, and I love that. I love that they are a really great unit. That's all we've got for you today on Crusader Squads. Let us know down in the comments what you guys think of Crusader Squads. What do you think of um, our suggestions on how to run them? Have you had success with something counter to what we're saying? We want to know your experiences as well. The book is still very new. We want to make sure that we're providing the best advice possible. We believe that this is the ideal way to run these guys. Um, so let us know what you think. Also, come check us out on Discord. We have a really great community of folks there talking Black Templars, strategy, lore, all things to do with BT. So, and then lastly, we have a Patreon. Please come check us out. You get extra benefits like early access to videos. Our Patreons. Thank you guys so much. This is you help support us to be able to do this. So we really appreciate it. And until next time, keep on crusading.